Good morning. Great to see some familiar faces in the audience here today. Also great to see a lot of interest in Salesforce security, specifically around Salesforce Shield. Excited also to be on the stage here with some true industry experts. So I'm Brian with RevClap. We've got Pete Thurston, who's a security and privacy expert here with RevClap, and then Rupesh Sheth, a key security and privacy expert within Intuit. So excited to be here today. Just for context, it'd be great to get a quick show of hands of what people's perspective is. So when our experts are talking about today's conversation. So who here already has Salesforce Shield? All right. Who has all three components of Salesforce Shield? Cool. And then last question, who has fully implemented platform encryption? Great. So that's the topic of today's conversation is really about platform encryption and how Intuit specifically leveraged a really robust approach along with RevClap to achieve record-breaking success around their platform encryption journey. So before we get started, as always, make buying decisions based on capabilities that exist today, not based on future promises or functionality that might come in. Real quick about RevClap. So RevClap, we are Salesforce security and privacy experts. We have a set of products and services that helps big brands ensure that the sensitive data that they bring into Salesforce is done so in a way that's compliant based on the security posture that they've established. That's a little bit about us. Everyone is familiar with Intuit, but let's hear Rupesh talk a little bit more about what Intuit is and what they represent.
Yeah, so Intuit's mission is to power prosperity around the world. We use data to drive great experiences, to eliminate work through innovative technology, and we really do provide confidence for people that they can do it themselves. Think about TurboTax, QuickBooks. These are individuals who thought they couldn't do it, now they can.
Yeah, and what I think about Intuit as we got further engaged is it's a very innovative technology company, which I think is appreciated and maybe underknown. And it's part of that foundation that they've really invested in Salesforce. And maybe Rupesh, can you talk a little bit more about how you're using Salesforce internally?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of orgs. Our biggest org, we have about 25 million contacts. We have over 50 integrations, and we fluctuate between 10 and 20,000 agents in a given year. So it's a fairly large implementation.
Got it. And in terms of the size or complexity of the environment, can you give some color in terms of how many users, objects, just some flavor of how complex an environment it has been used to evolve into?
Yeah, I've lost track of how many objects we have. But we have a lot of customization on top of our Salesforce instances. And to some degree, it's actually really helpful to bring in additional tools to help us manage those instances.
Cool. Perfect. So now let's get into the meat of it. So for platform encryption, obviously you had Shield, and you're looking to move and deploy platform encryption into your environment. What were some of the key drivers that led the initiative?
So like everyone here, we want to get more value out of our Salesforce implementation. And encryption being a big part of that, because what we'd like to be able to do is use PII in the agent experiences and be able to take advantage of it with things like search or being able to store things for agents to be able to look at later. As we looked around, you could look for third-party solutions. You could use things like field-level encryption. But platform encryption is the only solution that solved all of our needs.
Yeah, and this is something that we see across all of our customers, is that desire to bring more sensitive data into your orgs. As the organizations are moving towards their customer journey and leveraging Salesforce in unique ways, the key data that drives your customer experience is getting that into Salesforce becomes a bigger initiative to continue to add value. And so whether it's financial services with ESN and SSN type of information, HIPAA, or other industries, it's really something that we see across the board with RevClap. And so in terms of the process, what were some of the...
I'm going over there. I don't trust this thing.
So can you talk a little bit about your initial approach with platform encryption?
Yeah, so it was interesting seeing that poll earlier. I think a lot of people have purchased Shield and have had trouble getting going, just like we did initially. When we first acquired Shield, it sat on the shelf for about 6 months. The primary reason was, as soon as we started to think about encryption, we realized there were a whole bunch of dependencies that have to be resolved. Even though we had a head start on data classification, we realized you have to understand where your fields are being used in SOCLs or in reports, etc. And as soon as we tried to encrypt something, we realized we couldn't. When we started to think about, okay, what's it going to take to encrypt everything we want to encrypt, we realized it was going to be months of analysis before we could even get going and feel confident that we were not going to have an impact on our agents. And so we were kind of staring down months of analysis, and we didn't know how long to actually implement.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point that that I always recall about our initial conversations with Intuit and Rupesh specifically, is you had Shield in place, or you'd purchased Shield, and we're going through the process of implementing. And one of the things you said is, I haven't gone and told my info security team that we have this capability. And the reason I haven't really told them is because the next question they're going to ask is, well, how long is it going to take, and what is it going to cost to actually implement? And so it was those unknowns that I think is probably something that a lot of you are seeing as the hands started going down earlier in the conversation that become a challenge. And so when we started working, I guess, engaging with you, what was the things that were interesting about RevClap and our approach that helped maybe give you more confidence in going to info security and say we can actually encrypt and we can bring ESN and SSN into the org?
Yeah, so there were a couple of things. One, we actually reached out to Salesforce and asked, how are we going to get through all of this analysis? And they recommended we reach out to RevClap. And when we reached out and saw the demo, it actually made a lot of sense, which you're going to see in a few minutes. And we felt much, not just confident to purchase the product, but when we started using it, we found that we could get through that implementation of our first few fields encrypted in a couple of weeks or months even.
Yeah, and what we like doing is helping companies achieve their objectives in record-breaking time. And so if we go through the typical process that might be familiar to some of you that already have platform encryption. So what is the process to implement platform encryption? It starts out, as Rupesh mentioned, with data classification, then the impact assessment, mitigation of that. So once you identify the wish list of fields, bringing in, identify, well, can they be encrypted? And then finally, the actual encryption process. And Pete, I don't know if you want to add some color to what typically you see in a manual mode for the audience here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so the good news is there's a second copy of this slide with a green line that's much faster and more exciting. But yeah, so we really do see it. That data classification exercise can sometimes just take a couple of days, sometimes a week or so, and that's really trying to figure out, okay, all the fields you have in your org, how do you even know what you have? And then of those, how do you prioritize them for encryption? That next step, that business impact assessment, depending on the complexity of your org, it can easily take months, as Rupesh was saying earlier. In manual mode, it's really tough. And then the biggest thing there is it's really ripe with errors. There's probably a lot of developers here right now who are thinking, why don't you just pull down all the metadata into your IDE, and then you can just go, Command F and go find the fields and just figure it out. The rules are a lot more complex than that, and when you start realizing that every single object has a name field and things like that, it starts to add on to the complexity and the sort of false positives, false negatives that you get there. So it's not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, that's right. And as you, I guess the lead-in is there is a better way, and so what we'll talk about later on is a different version of this slide, but really what we're going to focus on is how so fast. And so like many of you that have acquired Shield, you realize that it's really capable, and platform encryption solves a really hard problem. And so, we like to use the analogy of this Ferrari. You've got this Ferrari that's got great wheels and it goes super fast, but you can't figure out how to open the garage door to get it out so that you can actually use it. And so what we really focus on is accelerating the process for time to value, both as part of the initial implementation, when you turn on platform encryption as part of your initial go live, as well as every subsequent implementation. Because as we all know, security is not a set it and forget it thing. You need to have a maintenance cycle to make sure that as you change your org, as you add new fields, as Salesforce provides additional capabilities as part of platform encryption, that you're doing that in a way that's aligned to the security posture that you've established from an encryption standpoint. So
I agree.
How so fast?
I'm going over there. So how do we kind of help people get through things faster, right? That's a great question with a missing slide. So we're just going to talk about it. I don't know But anyway.
You want to do a demo?
Demo?
Was that?
Demo?
Yeah, so exactly. So we're going to take a look at just the product directly. I was going to run you through one more slide. Now we're just going to go look at it. So we talk about that data classification and then business impact assessment, and then how do you actually get things implemented. So how do we get those things going faster? If we get this. So this product is Shield Security Cockpit. It's what RevClap's put together to really help with platform encryption. We started with that data classification, and the key in kind of manual mode is, okay, you've got to figure out how do you get all the metadata out of your org, shoot off an email to your compliance officer and have them kind of tell you how they feel about each field, and then you can decide from those which ones do you want to encrypt. The second you get through that email exchange of a couple days, you've added new fields, something's changed, there's questions to be asked. So we decided just do it in the org. There's really no reason to ever leave your org for this. So we've got this living source of truth in here, and I actually know that for this org, we really want account number to be confidential instead. So as you go through, you can just kind of select the fields right in place, classify them, and now you've got this living source of truth that's in your org, and as things change, you can come back to it time and again. The next step is that business impact assessment. And so once you've gotten through that data classification exercise and you kind of know how you feel about all your data, and these severity levels are all kind of custom defined in your org. You can set them up however you want, whatever your CISO says or your compliance or legal teams. And so once you've got all that classified, you can go over here to the Platform Encryption Analyzer, and you can just basically filter down to all the things that are really important to you. So you can filter down to, say, your high priority levels, and you're going to check this box over here off on the left. Once you've got that checked, basically what you've created is your wish list for encryption. This doesn't immediately encrypt the fields. What it's going to do is it's going to give you a future state and what's going to happen if you try way earlier than that weeks or months of kind of combing through the IDE, right? So what you do is you just go select those fields and hit this big fat go button, the analyze button. In really large orgs, like Rupesh's org is a very complex org. There's a ton of code in there. There's a lot of formula fields and reports and list views and all that stuff. The initial analysis in that org took about 30 minutes. It's really not that bad. In a small org like a demo org like this with 772 fields, it takes a couple of minutes. So you're taking that time and you're just dramatically shortening it to the point where in the first day you can start to have conversations around, okay, what are we going to do about it? You've got all the information you need.
And so that's a really important point. That's a really important point. So doing this process manually, as Pete mentioned, it's capturing information, exporting it, sending emails, and a whole lot of asynchronous transactions that, one, they're inefficient, and two, they're not accurate as soon as the send button is hit. And so by collapsing this into a real-time view, we're actually able to help customers do data classification in a couple of hours, assuming you've got the right constituents from your organization involved to support that conversation. Incredibly powerful and accurate.
Yeah, well, what it does is it takes it and it takes it away from being a technology challenge and turns it into a business opportunity to just have a conversation. You've got all the information at your fingertips. Now you can inform and figure out how you're going to proceed. So what we do after we run that analysis is you can see across the middle here, we've kind of bucketized the fields, right? So you can see that we've got 772 fields in this org. Of those, 106 I selected from my wish list here. And then these three buckets across the top are really interesting. So the all clear box is the all clear box is the number of fields that you can just go ahead and encrypt today with confidence. We know that you're not going to go break stuff. Everything's cool. Over here on blocked by platform, those are things that platform encryption just doesn't support. And that's really one of two things. It's custom fields that are data types that aren't supported, like a checkbox or something, or standard fields that aren't on the supported standard field list. So that's what blocked by platform is. And a lot of the really interesting stuff comes over here under blocked by configuration. So blocked by configuration are fields that theoretically could be encrypted with platform encryption, right? So they're a data type that's supported or a standard field that's supported, but you've referenced them in some way that will either break or will just disallow encryption. So if you're familiar with platform encryption, the process isn't that hard. You go to the field in the object manager, you check a box, you hit save, and you wait for an email, and you cross your fingers, and you pray, and it says, oh, it's referenced in a SQL query somewhere. And you go, oh. And then you keep kind of throwing it against the wall, see what sticks, right? So being able to get that information into your hands much faster is really what we focused most of our effort. So we're able to do things like what we call the hidden rules of platform encryption, like list view sort criteria, filter criteria, report filters, things where platform encryption will allow you to encrypt that field. But what it's going to do is actually pull the field out of the filter criteria, and now your report that yesterday had 60 rows has 60,000 today, right? So we'll show you all that information. All these blue links are links off to the setup menu for whatever the component is, so you can go kind of spot fix it as you go. If you decide that you do want to proceed with encryption, you hit the button and we'll walk you through. We support both probabilistic and deterministic. Keep in mind this layers on top of Shield platform encryption, so we're just showing you what's possible with their stuff. We're not encrypting it ourselves. It's just a quick and easy way to get there. And if you enable through here, if you do your encryption process from within our product, we will actually store off a log of who did it and when, which is really nice because when you're making metadata changes, sometimes that can get lost.
And so as part of the process,
I'm going to wrap that one up.
It's simpler, it's in real time, it's accurate, and it allows you to go not only faster. Remember, think about that Ferrari. You can get the Ferrari and start taking it on the road, but you're knowing that you're doing it in a way that's compliant based on the security strategy that you've established. So, Rupesh, can you talk specifically about what your results were with platform encryption and Shield Security Cockpit?
And that report screen that we're looking at, is actually key for us because that was what accelerated us. Once we knew where we were blocked by configuration, you can go to the next slide. That's how we were able to get from months of analysis to actual implementation in a couple of months. And we knocked out half of our fields in a couple of months, fully encrypted. We also, to a point Brian made earlier, we were able to have good internal conversations around security and what we could do in Salesforce going forward. Actually, probably most importantly, we also have really good conversations now with Salesforce about why certain fields are blocked by the platform and what we need to do to push forward there. So it's really helped us just overall with our security and encryption journey.
Yeah, and as part of those conversations, that there's been a few items that Intuit specifically has requested that are on the roadmap and have been deployed into production for platform encryption. So again, you can have informed conversations internally, informed conversations with your account executive team, and again, to Pete's point, it becomes less, platform encryption becomes less a Salesforce technology capability and more of a solution to solve a business problem. So, and we see that across the board, and for those of you that were here in the beginning, you saw this slide earlier, the red is the typical implementation process with Shield Security Cockpit, the ability to classify, assess, and encrypt. Classify, assess, and encrypt very, very quickly. You're able to go a lot faster and, again, make your life easier, make your Salesforce product owner's life easier, info security happy, compliance happy, regulatory happy. Everybody wins, and now you can bring all the sensitive data that you want in your Salesforce environment. You can do it knowing that you're not exposing any additional risks. So engage with us, RevClap, Intuit. We've got a number of resources. We have an educational series on security and privacy specific to Salesforce. A lot of content and webinars on our website and LinkedIn. We also, for those of you that are around later today, we're in the demo jam, 5 o'clock over there in the admin theater. Shameless plug. We need votes. We've never done this, so you come and vote. You might get a hat or some sunglasses or something cool. And then some of our other products that are also in the App Exchange, Field Audit Trail Cockpit and Privacy Management Cockpit. So with that, are there any questions from the audience? Perfect. I think we hit it. Anything else, Pete or Rupesh, to add?
No, just if you see us running around, you see an orange hat or some orange sunglasses, just grab us, and we're happy to help out with anything. We've got silly shirts somewhere. We've got to wear those too, so happy to talk to anybody about it.
Yep. If you have any questions, we'll be around for a few more minutes.
Cool. And then, just like Pete and Rupesh, we should have... You two can go very fast.
Yeah.
Go faster with RevClap. All right. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Rupesh. Everyone enjoy the rest of your event, and we'll see everybody soon.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.